They were supposed to be unstoppable, the kind of running backs who would dominate the NFL for years. But since 1970, only a handful of Heisman winners have actually done that. So in today's video, we're looking at all 20 of them to find out who lived up to the hype and who did not. First up, we've got Johnny Rodgers, and to be honest, I almost didn't include him because he was mostly a receiver, but he did play a decent amount of running back during his Heisman year, as well as returning kicks. The guy shredded defenses, racking up 942 receiving yards, 267 rushing yards, and 15 total touchdowns in 1972 to win the Heisman. He was drafted by San Diego 25th overall, but when the Chargers offered what he called fourth-round money, Rodgers took his game to Canada instead. He played in the CFL for 4 years, becoming an all-star every single season before eventually returning to the NFL in 1977. Unfortunately, injuries wrecked everything he had going. Rodgers dealt with a severe kneecap injury in 1978 that put him out of commission. By the time of his retirement, he had just 234 receiving yards and 49 rushing yards over 2 NFL seasons. Rodgers did stay busy after his playing days though, becoming a businessman and running the Johnny Rodgers Youth Foundation to support education and youth development programs. Here's another guy who wasn't just a running back. In fact, his coach at Penn State had him playing defensive back to start off because Franco Harris and Lydell Mitchell were already in the backfield. Then those guys graduated and Cappelletti got his shot. Right away, he was awesome. In 1972, he racked up 1,117 rushing yards and 13 total touchdowns. But his Heisman year was even better. 1,522 yards and 17 rushing touchdowns, leading Penn State to a 12-0 record. The Rams grabbed him 11th overall, expecting that dominance to continue, but instead, he had just 198 yards and 0 touchdowns as a rookie. He did improve as time went on, but never found that college magic in the pros, and he retired with under 3,000 rushing yards. In 1974 and 1975, we had the first and the only guy to win the Heisman Trophy twice. And Archie Griffin had 31 straight games with over 100 rushing yards, which is still an NCAA record today. I mean, he averaged 6.1 yards per carry over 4 college seasons. Bengals took him 24th overall, thinking that they had a sure thing. His rookie year looked solid enough, 625 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then everything fell apart. After those 3 rushing touchdowns as a rookie, Griffin wouldn't score another rushing touchdown until 1981. Just 2,808 yards and 13 total touchdowns over the course of 7 NFL seasons. Just goes to show you how hard it can really be for these guys to translate that college success to the NFL level. But what happens when a Heisman winner actually lives up to the hype? Well, Tony Dorsett is your answer. He wasn't messing around in 1976. The guy absolutely demolished defenses for 1,948 yards and 21 touchdowns, getting more than 83% of the first place Heisman votes. The Cowboys grabbed him 2nd overall, and you could tell right away that this guy was different. Dorsett ran for 1,007 yards and had 13 total touchdowns, including an 84-yard touchdown run that was the longest in the NFL that year. In week number 12 against Philadelphia, he torched them for 206 yards in a 24-14 win. To top it all off, in that rookie season, he also helped the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. Dorsett ran for 66 yards and a touchdown in Super Bowl 12, capping off an Offensive Rookie of the Year season that announced that he was legit. Over the course of 12 years, he racked up 12,739 rushing yards and 90 total touchdowns, earning himself 4 Pro Bowl selections and eventually landing himself in Canton. Now, speaking of living up to the hype, Earl Campbell took it to an entirely different level. At Texas in 1977, he bulldozed through defenses for 1,744 yards and 18 rushing touchdowns, winning the Heisman easily. The Houston Oilers made him the 1st overall pick, and right off the bat, people questioned that decision. But what followed might be the most dominant start to an NFL career by any running back ever. Campbell's rookie season was absolutely insane. 1,450 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. He finished first team All-Pro, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, won Offensive Player of the Year, and finished second in MVP voting. Then he did something even crazier. He got even better. For 3 straight years, Campbell led the league in rushing yards and won Offensive Player of the Year. He won MVP in 1979 and finished second again the very next season. And when you watch the highlights, what really jumps off the screen is that the guy ran like a freaking train, trucking linebackers and safeties who were even dumb enough to step in front of him. Campbell's peak was so high that people really forget how quickly it ended. He had 5 1,000-yard seasons in his career, which seems impossible for a guy that dominant. Sad part is that the punishing running style that made him unstoppable also took a huge toll on his body. By 2001, at just 46 years old, Campbell could barely close his fists due to severe arthritis. The good news is that nobody should ever forget this legend's name because he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1991, and it was well deserved. After winning the 1978 Heisman Trophy with 1,762 yards and 20 touchdowns, Billy Sims nearly ran it back and came second in voting in 1979. He actually had more touchdowns on less carries that year, but Charles White beat him out, who we're going to talk about in a minute. He led the league with 1,303 yards and 13 touchdowns as a rookie, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. He even helped the Lions reach the playoffs in 1983. And I do know the Lions technically made the playoffs in 1982, but that was only because the strike-shortened season kind of messed with the playoff format. Everything was rolling until October 21st, 1984 against Minnesota. He suffered a horrible knee injury that ended his career. The sad thing is, he just set the team's all-time rushing record as well. After retiring, his financial troubles got so bad he eventually had to sell his Heisman Trophy, which is just awful. Browns took him 27th overall, but his rookie season was anything but ideal. Just 279 yards and 5 touchdowns in 14 games. White did have one brilliant season in 1987 though, leading the league with 1,374 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. That was it. Sadly, he dealt with dementia that doctors linked to his playing days, which is just terrible. He ended up passing away in 2023, just 11 days before his 65th birthday. Moving on to 1980, George Rogers had a monster Heisman season with 1,781 yards at South Carolina. The Saints grabbed him first overall and immediately got what they paid for. Rogers exploded for 1,674 rushing yards as a rookie, leading the entire league, winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, making the Pro Bowl, and earning himself first-team All-Pro honors. He also made the Pro Bowl again in year number 2 despite the strike-shortened season, and had another standout year in 1986, leading the league with 18 rushing touchdowns. Rogers ended up retiring with 7,176 rushing yards, 54 touchdowns, and a Super Bowl ring. Not too bad, but not as good as the next guy up on our list. At USC, Marcus Allen destroyed everybody in 1981 with 2,342 rushing yards and 23 total touchdowns, winning the Heisman over Herschel Walker. The Raiders grabbed him 10th overall, and Allen's rookie season was great even during that strike-shortened 9-game year. He racked up 1,098 yards from scrimmage and 14 total touchdowns, leading the league in both categories. He made the Pro Bowl, first-team All-Pro, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and was third in MVP voting, all during his first season. But Allen was just getting started. In 1985, he won the league MVP after rushing for 1,759 yards and 2,314 total yards from scrimmage. Over 16 seasons, he's had 12,243 rushing yards, which is 14th all-time, along with 6 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl championship, and eventually a spot in camp. But the next guy up, if we're talking about college football, he raised the bar even higher, because Herschel Walker dominated for 3 straight years like no one before or since. He led the SEC in rushing every season, finishing 3rd in Heisman voting, then 2nd, and finally winning the award with 1,752 yards and 16 touchdowns. But instead of entering the NFL draft, Walker signed with the USFL's New Jersey Generals. He torched that league for 3 years, finishing with an MVP season where he rushed for 2,411 yards in 1985. When he finally decided to join the NFL, he was drafted 114th overall by the Cowboys. Obviously pretty low for a Heisman winner, but by that point, everybody was worried about the mileage on his body. Walker's NFL career started strong with 1,574 yards from scrimmage as a rookie, and he had 2 more seasons with at least 1,500 yards from scrimmage.
White, snap is back, handoff, Walker up the middle, 10, 5, touchdown, Herschel Walker!
But he's probably most famous for his trade to Minnesota, which became the most lopsided deal in NFL history, giving Dallas the draft picks that they needed to build their 1990s dynasty. Walker finished with solid numbers, 8,225 rushing yards and 13,084 total yards from scrimmage. But you always wonder what could have been if he'd gone straight to the NFL after that dominant college career. In 1983, Mike Rozier shredded defenses for 2,148 yards and 29 touchdowns at Nebraska, averaging an absurd 7.8 yards per carry while winning the Heisman. Just like Walker, Rozier chose the USFL over the NFL, going first overall to Pittsburgh. He had solid USFL numbers before eventually joining the Oilers in 1985. His NFL career never quite caught fire though. He only had 2 Pro Bowl appearances, 1 1,000-yard season, and retired with just 4,462 rushing yards, which would be fine numbers for about any other guy, but not a Heisman winner. Then we had Bo Jackson, and we've covered him a lot before on this channel, but the guy was just on another level when it comes to his athleticism. His 1,786 yards and 17 touchdowns at Auburn earned him the Heisman, narrowly beating out Chuck Long from Iowa. But those numbers barely scratched the surface of what made Bo so special. Bucks drafted him first overall, but Jackson had other plans. He refused to sign, choosing to play baseball with the Kansas City Royals instead. When he finally joined the Raiders in 1987, the numbers didn't exactly jump off the screen. Just 2,782 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns over 4 NFL seasons. But Bo Jackson was never about the numbers. He was a human highlight reel who ran through defenders like they were practice dummies. If anybody ever passed the eye test, it was Bo. But speaking of the eye test, 1988 might have given us the best college season of all time, and Barry Sanders was nothing like Bo Jackson. In fact, he was nothing like any running back who had come before him. Sanders barely played at Oklahoma State until 1988, sitting behind Thurman Thomas for 2 years, but even then, people knew what was coming.
We were getting ready to play the University of Oklahoma, and Barry Switzer, who's the head coach at University of Oklahoma, says, whatever you do, don't hurt Thurman. I was like, okay.
When he finally got to start, he exploded for 2,628 rushing yards and 37 touchdowns, making him the no-doubt Heisman choice. The Lions grabbed him 3rd overall, and Sanders immediately showed he was different. His rookie season produced 1,470 yards and 14 touchdowns, earning first-team All-Pro honors and Offensive Rookie of the Year. But that was just the beginning. Sanders made the Pro Bowl and All-Pro teams every single year that he played. He won MVP in 1997 and Offensive Player of the Year 2 times. When he finally hung up his cleats, he had 15,269 rushing yards in just 10 seasons, and he's still 4th on the all-time rushing list. I don't know about you guys, but more than anyone else I've ever seen, Sanders ran like he was a Madden player with cheat codes. He'd disappear into a pile of defenders and somehow come out on the other side having gained 7 or 8 yards on a play that he should have lost 3. And he walked away on top on his own terms in a way that a lot more guys are starting to do today. After Barry, we had to wait 6 years before another running back won the Heisman. Rashawn Salaam burst onto the scene with 2,055 yards and 24 touchdowns at Colorado, beating out Kajana Carter and Steve McNair for the Heisman. The Bears selected him 21st overall, and his rookie season looked promising with 1,074 yards and 10 touchdowns. The warning signs were certainly there. He lost 8 fumbles and averaged just 3.6 yards per carry. Injuries, those fumbling issues, and marijuana troubles threw his career completely off course pretty quickly. He never rushed for more than 500 yards after his rookie year and was out of the league after 1999. Tragically, Salaam took his own life in 2016 at just 42 years old. Rest in peace. Eddie George had been solid at Ohio State in 1994, but his Heisman season in 95 was special. 1,826 yards and 24 total touchdowns. The Oilers drafted him 14th overall, and George immediately became their workhorse back. His 1,368 rushing yards as a rookie earned him Offensive Rookie of the Year honors, and he was just getting started. George's peak came in 2000 when he led the league with 403 carries, grinding out 1,509 yards and 14 touchdowns while finishing third in MVP voting and also leading the Titans to a first-place finish in the AFC Central Division.
Did he average 5 yards, 6 yards a carry for you? No. He was a bulldozer.
The guy was legendary for his durability, and the way that Titans fans chanted his name became one of the most epic sounds in Nashville. George helped carry Tennessee to Super Bowl 34, rushing for 95 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns in that championship game. He retired with 10,441 rushing yards and 78 total touchdowns, and today, he's the head coach at Bowling Green. Okay, let's move on to 1998, because if you're building a Mount Rushmore of college running backs, Ricky Williams is probably going to be on your list. Williams dominated at Texas, especially in those last 2 years, capping it off with 2,124 yards and 28 total touchdowns in 1998. Then we had Mike Ditka kind of lose his mind. He traded away every single remaining draft pick in 1999, plus some picks the next year, making Williams the only player the Saints drafted that season. The pressure was obviously enormous, and Williams was never going to live up to all that hype. In that rookie year, he had just 884 yards and 2 touchdowns. But after 3 seasons in New Orleans, Williams finally found new life in Miami during the 2002 season, leading the league with 1,853 yards and earning his only Pro Bowl appearance. Before long, he started this cycle of retirements and comebacks, missing entire seasons while battling personal issues. Williams eventually walked away to pursue wellness and astrology, which is pretty fitting if you ask me. Ron Dayne is up next, and he bulldozed through the Big Ten for 4 years, leading the conference in rushing 3 times and capping it off with 1,834 yards and 19 touchdowns in his final year. The guy was very big and was supposed to be too large to play tailback, but Barry Alvarez promised him the position, and Dayne delivered with 2 Rose Bowl MVPs. Giants drafted him 11th overall and paired him with Tiki Barber in a sort of thunder and lightning backfield. Dayne managed 770 yards as a rookie, but he never became the feature back that he was in college. He finished with just 3,722 rushing yards and 28 touchdowns over the course of 7 seasons, missing the Giants Super Bowl run after leaving for Denver and Houston. After 6 more years, we got another guy who is up there with the best college athletes in history. Reggie Bush wasn't just fast or elusive. He made defenders miss in ways that would literally make you do a double take. Pretty much nobody had looked like this since Barry Sanders. In that 2005 Heisman season, he had 1,740 rushing yards, an insane 8.7 yards per carry, plus 478 receiving yards and 18 total touchdowns. He won with nearly 88% of the first place votes, which as a running back is ridiculous. The Saints grabbed him 2nd overall, and Bush's rookie year showed flashes. He didn't light it up as a pure runner, but he did have 1,307 yards from scrimmage. In 2008, he returned 3 punts for touchdowns, and of course, he did help New Orleans win their Super Bowl the year after. Whenever he touched the ball, something special could easily happen.
And there is the end around and a double reverse. Here is Reggie Bush on the double reverse inside the 10, dives in.
His best season was probably in Detroit in 2013 when he hit the 1,000-yard mark for the 2nd time in his career, but let's be real, Bush never really lived up to all the hype. He seemed hesitant between the tackles, dancing around instead of powering forward, and he was injured a lot. He only played 16 games 2 times in 11 seasons. Even so, he retired with 9,088 scrimmage yards and 54 touchdowns, which is a lot more than people remember. Bush also had to give up his Heisman for 14 years before eventually getting it back in 2024. He also sued USC, the Pac-12, and the NCAA for using his name without permission. In 2009, Mark Ingram's Heisman season saw him rush for 1,658 yards and 20 total touchdowns. He came back for the 2010 season, but wasn't anywhere near as good. The Saints still drafted him 28th overall in 2011, and Ingram spent his rookie year sharing carries, but the patience eventually paid off. He made 3 Pro Bowl appearances and had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2016 and 2017. Ingram finished his career back in New Orleans and retired with 8,111 rushing yards, becoming the Saints' all-time rushing leader at the time, although Alvin Kamara has overtaken him now. These days, Ingram is analyzing games on Fox Sports' Big Noon Kickoff. Now, the last back to win the Heisman was all the way back in 2015, Derrick Henry. He rushed for 2,219 yards and 28 touchdowns, and he was just dominant all throughout that Alabama run, putting up 158 yards and 3 touchdowns in the championship game alone. In hindsight, it's pretty shocking to look back and think he fell to the 45th overall pick in the draft. And he didn't exactly go into the best situation because the Titans already had DeMarco Murray at the time. So Henry had just 490 yards as a rookie, then 744 yards in year number 2. But since 2018, he's been an absolute monster, making 5 Pro Bowls and winning 2020 Offensive Player of the Year. He's led the league in rushing twice, touchdowns 3 times, and nearly became the first player ever with 2 2,000-yard seasons after rushing for 1,921 yards in 2024. What makes this guy truly insane is the workload that he gets. He's led the league in carries 4 times, and he seems to just keep getting stronger, which is especially crazy to think when you think about how the guy had 2,000-yard seasons in high school, college, and the pros. He's 18th all-time currently in rushing yards, and with one more good season in 2025, he could easily break into the top 10, and honestly, I'm not going to bet against him. Hell, at the way he's playing, he could break into the top 5 by the time of his retirement. Almost every Heisman-winning running back just proved how tough it could be to make it in the NFL. You can have all the talent and hype in the world, but college football's most prestigious award cannot guarantee success once you step onto a pro field. But if you thought the running backs had it tough, wait until you see what happened to the quarterbacks who won the Heisman. Check out this video right here and you will see exactly what I'm talking about.